Hey, it's Jim McDonald, herbalist here in Michigan. Herbcraft.org, herbcraft.podia.com. See, I started adding that stuff. And this is blue vervain, Verbena histata, growing in a low meadow here in southeast Michigan. Let's get this one growing here. There's a bunch of poison ivy by the bottom. Always look for that around this area. We see some growing here and here and there. Yeah, there's a bunch. And we can see some back here in this meadow. And of course right here. It's called blue vervain, but the flowers are kind of purple in that way that in plants people mix up blue and purple and pink all the time. And it's not endangered. It's not threatened. It's not ecologically imperiled, but it is a popular plant. I'm gonna just walk a little bit. It is a popular plant. Herbalists like it. We dig it. It does cool things. It's a great nervine for like stressed out people with high expectations, and they give themselves or other people a hard time about it. And then when they can't live up to unrealistic expectations, they get all frustrated with themselves or others. Makes life harder. And this, as a bitter nervine, is really good for that pattern. Bitter nervines are good in general when people are responding to their stress with frustration and anger, you know, because we herbalists think that's a liver thing. So you see the cool blue vervain leaf pattern right there. Serrated edges. You can see that the leaves are opposite in nature. This one's been munched on by something. Again, these cool little flower spikes with these beautiful little flowers. So it's not endangered, it's not threatened, it's not ecologically imperiled, but it can be over-harvested. It can be harvested disrespectfully. So it's nice to see all of these in flower, right? It's good to see these flowers here. Oh, but look at that. This plant has been harvested. Yeah. And this plant here has been harvested. So look at this. This plant got cut off, and yet it grew up a bunch of new branches and flowers. This plant got cut off, and yet it grew a bunch of new flowers. So this is something that I teach regarding wildcrafting, is if you have a plant, I'm gonna stick my finger in here and try and do it right. If you have a plant that has multiple flowering branches and you want to harvest it, let's look at one that hasn't been harvested. If I wanted to harvest this plant and I cut it here, these lower flowering branches will grow up and out like these ones have, all this way, and still produce flowers for its ecosystem, for all the insects and other animals that rely on it, and also produce and drop seeds. So if I were walking by here and I see all of these in flowers, it doesn't really look like anyone came through and harvested here, right? And even this one here, where it's more obvious, look how much this branch has grown up, and this branch has grown up in here and there, and then back there. It's a way that we can gather plants and still leave enough of them to do other stuff for their environment and for their ecosystem, right? And if we're gathering, let's just say, let's go back to this one here. If I were to gather this one up here, I'm gathering a bunch of flowers. I'm not gathering many leaves. I can pull some of the leaves off down here from several different plants, and again, have very minor impact. Sometimes people say like, oh, you teach people about wildcrafting, you teach them ethical wildcrafting, and they just don't listen because people suck. Sometimes people do, I'll own that. But they'll say that people suck and they just won't pay attention. But people do pay attention. And this was shown to be someone who paid attention and is harvesting something in a good way that is still respectful of the plant and still respectful of the ecosystem. Now, if I were coming through here and I see all this and I see these plants over here haven't been harvested, really looks like the person only harvested from 2 stalks from 2 stalks that are all growing from the same plant, right? They gathered enough for themselves to use. If I was going through this area and thinking, am I gonna gather here? One of the things that I would do is I would look for signs that someone else has harvested. So someone else had harvested, oh, I guess, look, this one too, but this one has also put up more flowers. Let's see, 1 flowering spike, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 flowering spikes from where this one was cut because of where they cut it along the stem. I might say like, oh, someone's already harvested from this spot. And so even though I could ethically do the same thing with these plants, you know, I might just want to look for a place that hasn't been harvested from yet. Just to be nice to the plants. And again, blue vervain is not imperiled. It's not in ecological, you know, damage control, where we need to be very concerned about it. But it is a plant that herbalists like and that herbalists like to use. And the more that we can be super mindful and super respectful of the way that we gather it, the more that we can keep it from becoming a plant that is over harvested to its detriment. We always have to think about sustainability before it is a concern.